We have some breaking news in the NHL. Duncan Keith has been traded. He's officially on his way to Edmonton. We'll discuss the trade, what this means for the team coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have some pretty big and breaking news here from the NHL. We have a fairly significant trade involving the Chicago Blackhawks and the Edmonton Oilers. Now, this is a deal that's been rumored to be working on for the past two and a half weeks or so. Apparently, there was a lot of progress made over the weekend, and we're now ready to make this official. So, Duncan Keith, in 2 years left on his contract at $5.5 million and a full no-move clause, has been traded to the Edmonton Oilers. In exchange, going to Chicago is young defenseman Caleb Jones and a third-round pick. So that's a pretty substantial contract being taken on here by the Edmonton Oilers. Keith, of course, is 37, had to waive that no-move clause, which is something that we've talked about before, that he's actually gone to Chicago and had asked for a trade. Duncan Keith's family, and including his son, live in BC, and he wanted to try to get as close to home as possible. And it was rumored that Edmonton and the Seattle Kraken were the only two teams that he would consider waiving for. At least that's what we were led to believe. So obviously he had to be in agreement to this deal to go to the Edmonton Oilers. So of course the Oilers were rumored to want to bring in an experienced defenseman or experienced, player to the roster with some kind of a, championship caliber to their roster. Obviously Keith brings multiple Stanley Cups, terrific experience, give me a good leader, good guy around the room, but on the ice his performance has certainly declined, and I think that's fair to say. The 37-year-old Keith is hopefully going to have a smaller role with Edmonton and hopefully be able to get his game a little bit more back on track to finish out this contract. I mean, $5.5 million for this year and next year is not exactly a light deal to be taking onto your roster, and does pose some risk in my opinion. Now, you have to wonder how this is going to impact a variety of things, including defenseman Adam Larsson, who's a UFA or pending UFA, and was rumored to be close to getting a contract extension in place. But if he becomes signed, you would have to think that that's probably not going to happen now ahead of expansion because of the protection list that's going to have to be submitted here in a not too distant future, because Keith has a no-move clause. So theoretically, they have to protect him, and you would have to think that Darnell Nurse and Ethan Bear would be your next two guys to be protected there. So that certainly poses an issue. If you have to protect Larsson, you're not going to, that's a problem. You're setting yourself up to lose a good defenseman in expansion by doing this deal. But if Larsson's a UFA, Seattle could still talk to him. Of course, there is still a little bit of risk, but not a ton of it if he really wants to remain in Edmonton, and he doesn't really have to talk to Seattle, and Seattle may not talk to him anyways. Hard to say. And if they protect four defensemen, if they did sign Larsson, then they'd be setting themselves up to lose a pretty decent forward. My guess would probably be a guy like Jesse Puljujarvi, who just returned last year and actually showed pretty good progress and was a decent player for them. And I don't really think they'd want to do that either. Now, the other possibility here is that Duncan Keith, who still has the no-move clause, would agree to waive it. Now, I wonder if that's a possibility, because the rumor was he would only go to Edmonton or Seattle. So maybe the Oilers expose him and they lose him to Seattle. I don't know. There was rumored to be interest in the Kraken, so we're going to have to see. I don't think the story is completely told here yet. As of today, we're going to find out, of course, like I said, if Larsson gets signed, if Keith is protected or not, because obviously he has to waive to not be protected. So how is this going to unfold? Although I don't see the Oilers giving up assets just to expose them. That doesn't really completely make sense, but I guess we'll see. Maybe they'd rather lose Caleb Jones than another player off their roster in expansion, which if they lose Keith, that's essentially what they lost. It could get complicated, but either way, we'll see what happens here. It's obviously Caleb Jones going to Chicago does a couple of things too for the Hawks. It really helps their cap situation. They lose $5.5 million off the books, which I'm sure they are quite happy with. Duncan Keith is a legendary player for the franchise. To me, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But you know what? It's time to move on, and it's obviously going to work out for them. They get more room on their back end. They get a younger D like Caleb Jones. The Hawks are apparently very interested in Seth Jones, so it was rumored they were looking to bring Caleb in as that extra piece of enticement to bring Seth Jones to Chicago. So we'll see if the Jones brothers end up getting reunited into Windy City or how that plays out. But there's certainly going to be some other implications here that we don't quite know all the full domino effect of this trade. But like I said, it's been something that's been talked about for quite some time, about two and a half weeks now. and it's finally done. Duncan Keith has gone to Edmonton for Caleb Jones in the 3rd round pick. So, of course, as always, I want to know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. Let me know how you feel the rest of the story plays out. Do they wait and sign Adam Larson after expansion, and that's how they get around this? Do you think there's any chance they would get with Keith to waive his no move and be exposed to Seattle? Will he even want to do that? And will the Jones brothers be reunited in Chicago? We'll see how all this works out, but let me know your thoughts down below. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news and rumors on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.